UK condemns Iran's execution of a dual British-Iranian citizen Alireza Abari, Akbari. Alireza Akbari pictured in Tehran in an updated file photo. CNN, a dual British-Iranian citizen, was hanged by Iran on charges of espionage and corruption. A state-affiliated media outlet reported Saturday, the latest in a string of executions carried out by a regime grappling with unprecedented protests across the country. The Iranian official Alireza Akbari was executed for crimes including corruption on earth, according to Iranian judiciary-affiliated outlet Mizan. Akbari was charged with working as a spy for MI6, the British intelligence agency, and reportedly paid more than $2 million in various currencies, 1.805 million euros, 265,000 British pounds, and $50,000, Iranian state media reported Saturday. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said he was appalled by the execution. He added on Twitter, "This was a callous and cowardly act carried out by a barbaric regime with no respect for the human rights of their own people. My thoughts were with Alireza's friends and family." Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said Saturday afternoon that the British government planned to sanction Iran's Prosecutor General Mohammad Zafar Montazeri to underline our disgust at Alireza Akbari's execution. The Prosecutor General is at the heart of Iran's use of the death penalty. We are holding the regime to account for its appalling human rights violations, Cleverly said. Akbari allegedly provided information to foreign officials about 178 Iranian figures, including country's chief nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iranian media reported. Fakhrizadeh was killed by a remote-controlled machine gun operating out of car in 2020, according to a state-affiliated Fars News. Iran's top officials accused Israel of masterminding the plot at a time without providing evidence. Akbari purportedly carried out his intelligence work through the banner of the private company focused on research and trade activities, working directly with the research institute in London that Iran claimed are headed by intelligence officers. Iran's state news agency IRNA reported. IRNA also cited the allegations that Akbari had meetings with the MI6 intelligence officers and former British ambassador to Iran Richard Dalton. Iran's Supreme Court upheld the death penalty handed down to Akbari after deeming it to be based on substantiated evidence, according to IRNA. Mizan did not specify when the execution was carried out. Akbari's death sentence was announced just days ago on January 11th after his conviction on spying for the United Kingdom. Akbari had denied the charges. According to allegations published in Mizan on Wednesday, Akbari had been arrested some time ago. The BBC reported Akbari was arrested in 2019. On this basis, and after filing the indictment against the accused, the file was referred to court, and the hearings were held in the presence of the accused lawyer, and based on the buried document in this person's file, he was sentenced to death for spying for the UK, Mizan said. Akbari previously served as Iran's deputy defense minister and was head of the Strategy Research Institute, as well as a member of the military organization that implemented the United Nations resolution that ended the Iran Iraq War, according to Iranian pro reform outlet Shang Daily. He served under Iranian President Mohammad Khatami, a reformist who was in office from 1997 to 2005, according to the BBC. Though Iran does not recognize the dual nationality, the execution of the individual holding British citizenship will likely further fuel tensions between Tehran and Western democracies, which have been critical of the regime's response to anti-government demonstrations that began in September last year. Iran has long ranked among the world's top executioners, and Akbari is one of three individuals to receive the death sentence in the first weeks of the 2023. The two young men, the karate champion and the volunteer children's coach, were hanged last weekend after being convicted of killing a member of the country's Basis paramilitary force. Both had allegedly taken part in the protest that began after the 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini died while in custody of the country's morality police. Amini's death sparked massive nationwide demonstrations against the regime, often criticized as theocratic and dictatorial. A picture obtained by AFP outside Iran on September 21st, 2022, shows Iranian demonstrators taking to the streets of the capital Tehran during a protest for Mahsa Amini, days after she died in police custody. Critics have accused Tehran of responding to protests with excessive force. Activist groups HRANA and Iran Human Rights say that 481 protesters have been killed and using the country's unjust judicial system to intimidate would-be demonstrators. United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk alleged that Tehran was weaponizing criminal procedures to carry out state-sanctioned killing of protesters. As many as 41 more protesters have received death sentences in recent months, according to a statement from both Iranian officials and the Iranian media reviewed by CNN and 1,500 Tasbir. But the number could be much higher. The Iranian state media has reported that dozens of government agents, from security officers to officers of the Basis paramilitary force, have been killed in the unrest. Thousands of people have taken to the streets since Mahsa Amini's death in September. Though Akbari's execution was, on its surface, unrelated to the recent protest, cleverly, the British Foreign Secretary alleged that the act was politically motivated. He said that Iran's the affairs would be summoned over the execution to make clear our disgust at Iran's actions. The execution of British-Iranian Alireza Akbari is a barbaric act that deserves the condemnation in the strongest possible terms. Through this politically motivated act, the Iranian regime has once again shown its callous disregard for human life. Cleverly said on Twitter, "This will not stand unchallenged." The UK government had argued Iran not to execute Akbari, and the Foreign Office said it would continue to support his family. In the tit-for-tat move, the Tehran summoned the UK ambassador to Iran to protest the British government's recent act of sabotage and its unconventional interventions in Iran's internal affairs. Amnesty International called Akbari's execution particularly horrific and abhorrent assault on the right to life. The right group claimed that Akbari had said he was forcibly administered chemical substance held in prolonged solitary confinement and forced to make recorded confessions repeatedly. Amnesty argued that UK government to fully investigate these allegations of torture and ill treatment and pursue all avenues to hold the Iranian authorities to account. CNN's Niam Kennedy, Adam Pulamadi, Angus Watson, and Joshua Bellinger contributed to this report.